morning, everyone. My name is Jiang Wu. I'm the director of Center for Buddhist Studies and the professor of Chinese Buddhism at the University of Arizona. Today, we're very happy and honored to have Venerable Hui Dong with us. Venerable Hui Dong is right now the abbot of Shan Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple is right now the largest Buddhist establishment in Western Hemisphere. We're very lucky to have Venerable Hui Dong here because this afternoon he's going to give us a lecture for our Ling Buddhist Studies lecture series. The title of his presentation is How to Deal with Upheavals in Life from a Buddhist Perspective. And today, before the lecture, we have the pleasure to sit down with Venerable Hui Dong and talk about his tradition and Western Buddhism. And without further delay, I think I'm going to ask you questions. And Venerable Hui Dong, you have been selected as the abbot of Shirley Temple for about 7 years. And why you have been attracted to Guang Buddhism, and what is your spiritual journey? How do you describe that?
Thank you, Dr. Wu. And good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be in Tucson and also to be here to give a lecture. Regarding my personal journey in my spiritual practice, I think it's everything comes very naturally. I came to the United States to study as a student, and then I found the Buddhist temple near my campus, and then I went there to volunteer and also started to read books written by Master Hui, the founder of Shan Buddhist order. And then immediately I was attracted to the teaching in the books. Buddhism as a religion in China for almost 2,000 years. However, it's to most of the Chinese people probably it's still stays as it's just a religion or part of the culture, and people heard of Buddhism but don't really know what it is. And therefore, before I came to the United States, I occasionally went to the Buddhist temples in China for sightseeing or just occasionally burn incense. But I didn't learn what Buddhism was. It was after I came to that temple and started to read Master Hui's book and started to attracted to it, and I felt it was not superstition. It was it's not something very far away from people's life, but it's very much in the life itself, and also changed my view to look at my life and also to deal with difficulties in life. So eventually, I just belongs to this order and the Master Hui's teaching. I didn't have many choices back then in terms of the Buddhist traditions.
Okay. Yeah, so it looks like it's a very good choice.
Wow.
Right now you enjoy your life. And so can you give us a summary of Master Hui's teaching? So just in a very short version, how do you describe his teaching?
Master Hui's teaching on Buddhism is not for people to escape from this world, but to live in this world, live in everyone's own life, but to be a better person. The teaching, for example, as impermanence, it's a very basic foundational teaching in Buddhism, but it's not to describe it negatively as something negative, but it's a very positive. It means changes. Some people don't like changes in life. Changes are inevitable, and we all face changes sometimes in our life, and how to deal with it, and how to stay positive facing the changes in life. And that is a very vividly described in Master Xingyun's teaching. And also stay positive, and rather than just a theory on impermanence, we don't see anything will sustain permanently, but that is a good thing. That means new opportunities and a new future, and this is something we can positively adapt to, and also keep ourselves productive, and also the concept of impermanence is we can see it say in as a student, we can see it in our the studies, if in daily life and facing ups and downs, we can see this is how to with a positive spirit and do what we can at the best to be better off. Yeah. So this is it's not something away from our life, but we can experience it in our life. Buddhism is no longer just in the books at the theory, but in the daily life.
I guess this is why you call this tradition Humanistic Buddhism, because it's all about human beings here and right now.
In the human world,
Yes. But people still tend to think about Buddhist tradition as a sectarian tradition. Either is a Zen tradition or Pure Land. Here in the United States, people say it's probably New Age. How would you respond to a question like this?
Thank you. That's a great question. There are different traditions in Buddhism and different schools and different sects. However, those the differences are simply derived from the history, and also when Buddhism were transmitted to different countries, to different cultures, and it's for sure it will takes different forms, and also these schools and the sects were very much depending on the masters, the leaders of those schools, and depending on their own understandings of the Dharma, of the Buddha Dharma, and that they tend to elaborate it, explain those, understand those teachings according to their own social, historical, and the cultural perspectives, and therefore there were different schools and the sects in Buddhism. However, nowadays, when we come to a new era, and especially for most of the people who don't really know the history and history in different Buddhist traditions, or the history of Buddhism in general, and that they just want something as a remedy to their life situations, and we don't really have to focusing on the differences, but we can still use the common areas in different traditions to teach Buddhism, to spread the what is valuable, what is the core, what is beautiful, what can really help people to live their life. So I don't think that the differences would be the focus of the teaching to the general public. Of course, this is different to the scholars. The scholars, their interests are focusing on the differences, on the distinctions between the traditions and how the theoretical development and the practices would be. So it's a very different. This humanistic Buddhism, of course, it's also includes consists of the different types of humanistic Buddhism are also targeting different audiences. And we also have researchers and research on Buddhist studies as well.
So it's very clear to me. And is this something you're going to talk to us this afternoon?
This afternoon, the talk is focusing on how to deal with the challenges in life. I think this is especially nowadays, and this is what people are interested in the most.
Of course, your tradition has been founded by a great man, your leader, Master Hui. I met him twice, and he's a charismatic person. And he wrote a lot as well, a prolific writer. His complete collection is available to us as well. So what kind of a person is he? And if I want you to recommend a book to a beginner of Buddhism, which one do you recommend?
Master Hui is just a regular person. Master Hui is 93 years old this year. And he practiced Buddhism since 12 years old, which means more than 80 years. And most of his life, he he had to face a lot of challenges, physically and mentally. He was born in the time of the World War II. At that time, China was really in a turmoil, and Master Xingyun's practice in his life has always been dealing with upheavals in life. So his teaching is to teach us how to face the challenges, changes, or upheavals in life. So we can say his teaching is a very realistic, is not something just as a theory, as a words, as something in the books, but it's really, we can say it's his teaching is all his based on his own experience, and of course guided by Shakyamuni Buddha's teaching. And in Buddhism, in Buddhist practice, we all say this teaching has to be eventually become our own, our part of our own experience, and then we can really understand it. And Master Xingyun's teaching is about how to frame and how to look at the challenges or suffering or stress in life, and find its causes, and find the solutions to those challenges, and eventually get one's mind in peace. So this is his teaching is real, and Master Xingyun probably different from most of the people would ever imagine in his life as a Buddhist master, as a leader. His life was not always in peace. He suffered from the different illness, and he is almost blind right now, but he's still writing calligraphy every day. He published many books. His collection of his work, the collection of his work has 365 volumes, and also he's still writing nowadays as a 93 years old. His teaching is he himself using his life as a teaching as how to be a diligent, hardworking, how to be a hardworking, kind person, and also to look at our lives and look at the world, look at all the conditions in the world from the Buddhist perspective, and also based on one's own personal experience. And in his life, he's not only just a practice for his own liberation, but he really practiced Buddhism for all the sentient beings or humankind. This is why just from a poor little boy, a little monk, and then he developed Humanistic Buddhism or Guang Buddhist order to all over the world. And nowadays, there are almost 300 branch temples around the world in all 5 continents. And he established 5 universities and also Buddhist the foundations, TV stations, newspapers, publishing house, and of course the lay organization, lay Buddhist organization, the Buddhist Light International Association, which has millions of members around the world. So his life is really an inspiration to many people. It's in showing us Buddhism is really teaching us to not depending on a deity, spirit, or a god, but it's to become an independent person. Meanwhile, to be able to contribute to others and to the world.
That's great. Yeah, he's definitely an accomplished person, right? You mentioned his complete collection is about 365 volumes, so it's too much for an average reader to read. So then comes up to this recommendation.
Well, you can read it, a volume a day and finish it within a year.
Yeah, that's right, 365, right?
Right.
So that's exactly 1 year. But if I want you to just recommend one book, so which book you pick?
I would pick this book, Buddha Dharma, Pure and Simple.
Okay.
In fact, the Buddha's teaching is pure and simple. It's very, everyone can understand it. It's simply teaching people how to overcome the difficulties in life.
Okay, yeah. So remember this book. The title of this book is Buddha Dhamma, Pure and Simple. It's a translation from Chinese version. So I
Yes.
believe in Chinese version there are 3 volumes.
It
right?
is.
Yeah. And you mentioned Master Xingyun built about 300 temples. In the United States, Shirley Temple is definitely one of the earliest. He built that 76?
It's actually 1988.
Okay.
It was open to the public, but before that, it was there was 10 years application to the permit and the building
Okay,
period.
So let's talk about Shirley Temple. Right now it's your temple. So what do you do in your temple? How can you manage such a big temple?
Well, I can't say it's my temple. It's everyone's temple. It's a temple to all the people who go to Shirley Temple, who likes Shirley Temple. We practice there, and as a practice, we don't just meditate every day and read the sutras and the scriptures and pray. we actually we serve the people who visit there and practice there. And as Master Xing Yun teaches us, we are actually the volunteers of the volunteers there, the lay volunteers there, and all the visitors visiting Shirley Temple. So Shirley Temple is not someone's Shirley Temple. It's not even Master Xing Yun's Shirley Temple. It is. It belongs to the world, to the communities, to the American Buddhism. And at Shirley Temple, we are also very busy. We work almost every day in the year, from the beginning to the end of the year. In addition to our personal practices at our own times, and we also consider serving people, helping people, and organizing events and activities as a part of our practice. During the preparation time of those events, we learn how to cooperate with each other, interact with each other, and how to be compassionate, to accept the different ideas, how to handle disagreement, and how to from there we learn our own weaknesses and our own attachments, and then in our personal practice we targeting those weaknesses. At Shirley Temple, we found it's a great place for everyone to practice in their own ways.
Okay. Do you practice meditation, by the way? Do you have any meditation technique, a trick for us to quiet down our mind?
We do practice meditation on a daily basis, on our own time, but the best way to calm ourselves down is to have the right view. A lot of time, people have the turmoil in their mind. It's because of they resist the reality with their own views and with their own understandings, and then they suffer if they accept what comes to them. But of course, not everything is in their favor, but we have to accept it, be patient, and then we can inspire people with our own behaviors, with our compassion, and then eventually help people to understand what is the best way to behave to help themselves. So I would say to calm ourselves down, first we need to learn how to accept the reality. Of course, the daily practice of meditation or other type of mindfulness training can little by little eventually change our own character, our own nature. That is so it takes time to accept the differences, disagreement, and also it takes time for people using mindfulness training and in their own life and work to tune their mind to be peaceful.
Definitely, we're going to try it in our daily life. Talking about Shirley Temple, we know Shirley Temple is located in Los Angeles. It's on American soil. It's in the West, and we know right now Buddhism is actually one of the American religious tradition, and we all want to contribute to American culture, to United States. And thinking about the Western Buddhism, do you have any comments, observation about the Western Buddhism and how your temple, Shirley Temple, everybody's temple, can contribute to American culture, American Buddhism?
I think we are part of American Buddhism. Shirley Temple has been in Los Angeles area for more than 30 years. Actually, this year it's 31 years already. The practice of humanistic Buddhism, focusing on the very daily life of each individual as a Buddhist practice, it might take time. It might take time for people to really understand it and even think it is a religion, because nowadays a lot of people learn Buddhism from their readings online. They can easily find the articles, the translation of the Buddhist sutras or scriptures from online, and some people also, benefit from their individual practice of meditation. But I found a lot of people who are new to Buddhist practice would always have a romantic imagination on the liberation. So liberation is not for people to go somewhere. Liberation is not to transform people to someone else. It's just to become a better and a better person. And I think that is it takes time for people to really separate this teaching, the daily teaching and daily practice from the romantic imagination of becoming a Buddha. The Buddha is literally, it means the enlightened person or awakened person, awakened from one's own illusions, from one's own sufferings. So as long as we live a very happy and a carefree life, and we can benefit the world and others, and we are liberated. And then that is what the Buddha as a term, what it means. So I would think definitely as a part of the American religion, our practice would definitely will reach to more and more people. And in fact, nowadays, half of the visitors, probably even more than half, are local people from different cultures, not Asian people. Okay. The Asian practitioners would join our events and activities. That's a bigger percentage of the Asian practitioners. But in terms of visiting it, learning meditation, taking the classes, we have more Westerners coming to Shirley Temple to learn Buddhism, and they become happier, they become very positive, they become more and more positive.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely we want to contribute to American Buddhism. But on the other side, we have to remember this version of Buddhism, humanistic tradition, derived from Chinese culture. And as a person growing up in Chinese culture, what do you think about the role of Chinese Buddhism, Chinese culture? And is there a future in the world for this type of Buddhism to flourish?
Master Xingyun is a Chinese. Therefore, his teaching basically takes the form of a Chinese Buddhism. There are lots of Chinese cultural elements in his teaching, and in his understanding or way to explain the Dharma. But I don't think, especially nowadays, we can really separate ourselves or each one culture from the culture of the world. Especially, with the technology, with the technology on the transportation, communication, and the world is becoming a global village, right? I think the future of this teaching, it's not just focusing on its a Chinese root or as the culture, the Chinese culture. I think everything, including Buddhism and humanistic Buddhism that we promote, it definitely have to focusing on the future of the world, the future of the humankind as a whole, rather than just the Chinese cultural elements.
And here comes our last question. So I always kind of save this question for our guests, and it's a very personal, private question. I want to study the relationship between Buddhism and the civilization. So my question is how Buddhism changed world civilization. I want to write a book. Actually, next semester, I'm going to teach right here in Poetry Center for our humanities seminar program about this content. And I want to survey Buddhist tradition from India to Central Asia, China, Tibet, and Japan, Korea, and all the way to the West. And if I ask the same question to you, how Buddhism changed world civilization, how would you answer that?
That is a great question. It depends on how we understand civilization, how we define it, and what it means to us. I don't think it's Buddhism is ever want to change civilization. In the history of Chinese Buddhism, Buddhism did changed or shaped the Chinese culture to some extent. People the Chinese people understood the cause effect, and also understand their religions or or combined on their own religions to the Buddhist ideas, and I would say incorporate the Chinese people incorporated their own religious ideas to the Buddhist ideas. But the Buddhist teaching, it tend to change people's the mentality, their own mindset, to look at things from the reality, from the perspective of peeling off the sense of self, the ego, and tend to live a harmonious life. And Buddhism, it's still it's just help us to adapt ourselves to the civilization, to the world, to the life that we live. Of course, when a lot of people accept the Buddhist ideas, it can sometimes it can somewhat influence how people think, how people make decisions, how people behave. That would probably eventually change the trend or direction of humans' world, or where human the civilization directs to. But whether it is or it is not, it's not the intent, original intent of the Buddhist teaching. And also, if it can, somewhat change it, I would say it's good to change people to be more compassionate, to have a peaceful mind. So I would say with the practice of Buddhism, people would probably find their own potential of their own wisdom, and depending less on the outside world. However, we can contribute to other people and to the world. And that is what I hope to see as a Buddhism contribute to the civilization rather than changing it.
Okay, great. So this is a very modest answer and also a Buddhist answer. I will keep it in mind and think about that in my research and the teaching. Anyway, I want to thank everybody and thank Venerable Hui Dong for allowing us to sit together and talk about Buddhism and civilization as well. And thank you very much.
Thank you,
Venerable
Dr.
Hui
Wu,
Dong.
and thank you, everyone, for being patient with me.
Okay, thank you.